Your period is a readout of how you treat yourself and how you allow others to treat you and what's going on in your life. During your menstrual cycle, all the dysfunction of your life will come to the surface there.
Welcome to Deeper Threads. I'm Lara Charles, author of Joy Regardless. Here we explore what lies beneath the surface, in ourselves and in the world, all in service of returning to our wholeness, because wholeness is where real change begins. Let's dive in. I've heard people talk about how we are one with nature, but I've never really felt that way. That is, until this conversation. And yes, this episode is centered around the menstrual cycle, our periods, but at its core, its deeper thread, it's really about how we orient our lives. Because when we've spent decades orienting ourselves around everyone and everything else, our work, our families, what the world expects of us, we can lose the thread back to ourselves entirely. So the question of how am I living becomes inseparable from the deeper one. Who am I, really? Because when we structure our lives around our cycle, we harmonize with nature. We rest in winter, we plant seeds in spring, we thrive in summer, and we harvest in autumn. And what this conversation made me realize is that that is how we're designed to live. This linear model of productivity, of all work and no rest, is a model imposed on us by colonial forces. And it goes against our very nature. No wonder so many of us feel lost, depleted, disconnected from ourselves. No wonder we don't know who we are anymore. Because how we're taught to live is so out of sync with what our bodies know to be true, and what our bodies are quietly and persistently calling us back to. Today I talk with Astrid Serpentine. Astrid is a menstrual educator who offers workshops and women's circles to help women embody the fullness of themselves. She is also a writer, singer, and actress, and at the end of this conversation, we talk about how her two worlds are coming together in her musical simply called Blood, a piece of art with the very same intention as this podcast, to help return us to the fullness of ourselves. And to do that, we must learn to live in harmony with, not against, our nature. My hope is that this conversation opens up the possibility that when we begin to live in harmony with our cycle, we aren't just syncing with nature, we are actually starting to reclaim ourselves. So let's now meet Astrid. I think you're going to love her as much as I do. I hope you enjoy this chat. If you do, please share it with anyone you think would resonate with exploring the deeper threads of life. And subscribe over at laracharles.substack.com for more conversations and reflections. The link is in the show notes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deeper Threads podcast. Today, I am joined by Astrid. Welcome, Astrid. And Astrid is here to enlighten us about our menstrual cycles. And I'm really excited about this because I am in my mid-40s, and up until very, very recently, I had no idea there was wisdom in my cycle because I was like all of us, I was raised in a culture and we were kind of taught that our cycles are just icky and gross and annoying. And that is absolutely what I believed up until very, very recently. And you, Astrid, have been one of the people that have really opened my heart and mind to the actual power that lives inside me. So I'm really excited to pass on what you've taught me through your training at the School of Shamanic Womancraft, which really is about reconnecting women back to their cycles. But I wanted to start with this before. We're going to get into the specifics of the cycle in a minute and what that means for us. But before we get into that, I wanted to start with this. I think most of us can probably relate to the idea that we live in this culture that's very linear. We're kind of orientated towards this progress line. So school, university, job, save, more saving, we always seem to be going upwards. But what we're talking about today is a completely different orientation towards a cyclical way of living, which is a completely different orientation. So I just wanted to ask you, what is cyclical living? And when in your own journey did you realize there's real power in living this way?
So this is I generally teach from my experience. So other people are going to have different opinions or ways of explaining this. So I'm just going to explain it from my experience of it. Part of the learnings and the teachings from the School of Shamanic Womancraft is based on understanding each rite of passage. And within the first rite of passage, which is menarche, menstruation, there is this incredible map, and I call it the menstrual map, and it shares with us how the seasons and the cycles of the moon are an extremely important part of the menstrual cycle, and they reflect back on each other. So it shows us that we're, as women and females and bodies who bleed, that we have the seasons within us. Each week of the cycle is a season. Every single month we get to experience the seasons and the moon cycles. So that's kind of how I experience my life and my experience of menstruation, even though I'm almost 47. I am 47, just turned 47. I'm only now really just embodying an understanding of those seasons within me.
Okay.
And I live by that. I pay attention to each week of the cycle, and I try to embody that, the essence of that, of each season, so that I'm living in alignment with my menstrual cycle. And because of that, and because of my awareness of it and how I've taken it all on, I no longer have any period pain. I don't even know when my cycles are coming. I'll know because I feel a bit tired, but sometimes I feel real pumped around my menstrual cycle now. So it requires a bit of awareness around what's happening at the time that you're about to bleed as well. So that's another layer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I embody and understand the menstrual cycle and my seasonal cyclic quality.
So let's get into that a bit more. So if we can talk about is it 4 phases of the menstrual cycle?
Yeah, 4 weeks, yeah.
And then what could we expect? What qualities is each phase? What does that mean for us, both physically and spiritually and emotionally?
Okay. The first week of the cycle is known as, that's the bleed time. That's where the first 7 days is where you'll bleed. And that's kind of in the that's a wintry season.
Okay.
It's the feeling of retreat. It's being in your cave. It's also the time of midnight.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Midnight sleeping and resting.
Okay.
So that's the flavor of that. And after the bleed finishes, you're moving into spring energy, which is where you start to feel, I'm back into the world. I'm starting to feel like I want to come back into the world. And through that spring energy, as you know, like shoots and seedlings are coming through the ground, little rabbits jumping around, and babies are being born and stuff.
Yeah.
And then as you go up past those 7 days up to day 14, you're up in the summer. When you're ovulating, you're in the energy of summer. You feel social. It's usually, as my teacher Jane Hardwick Collins says, you're the most beautiful at this time. And then as the estrogen wanes and your ovulation is over, when there's that little window, it comes into autumn energy. So if you think of autumn, the leaves are falling off the trees, the leaves are turning reddish. So that's the energies coming into decay, starting to decay. But you're also noticing it's kind of like a space of harvest as well. So after you have that ovulation and that energy, it's kind of like, what has been created at this time? What's the harvest in autumn? And then as you progress down from autumn, everything's starting to decay into winter. So what happens in winter? It's getting cold. You're going to wear more clothes. You're eating more hearty foods. So you're coming back down. So then the cycle starts again. So that's a very generalized 2-minute explanation.
So if we go to like, how should we live in each week or each phase? So winter, when we're bleeding, is that really about rest and retreating? If we're retreating, what are we kind of emotionally and energetically looking for?
So during your bleed time, your physical body is obviously shedding the lining of the uterus, and you're letting go of things that you don't need. And it's, very cleansing for the vagina as well to receive that blood through the body. There's a lot of stem cells. It's very healing. So if there's anything that you need to tend to physically, you can ask during that menstrual cycle for it to be healed with the blood. In terms of emotionally, it is a time to be in your cave and to rest and to look at the things. Like, you'll notice, a lot of people will say, I thought it was, I don't know what's wrong with me, something's happening. And then all of a sudden your period comes and you go, it's just my period. And when I hear that, I kind of go, we need more awareness around saying that, it's just my period, because your period isn't doing it to you. Your period is a readout of how you treat yourself and how you allow others to treat you, and what's going on in your life. During your menstrual cycle, all the dysfunction of your life will come to the surface there.
What do you mean by that?
So, for example, if every single time you get your period, you have the same conversation with your partner, or you have the same sort of thing happening over and over again, until you face that thing, until you address that thing, until you say the words that you need to say potentially, or quit your job, or the same thing is going to start, it's just cyclic. It's just going to keep revealing itself. So blood time is an opportunity to let go of what's not serving you, so that when the next cycle comes, you can go, oh, okay, what am I going to bring to full fruition here at ovulation?
Yeah.
And then what do I need to let go of again and build again? It's such a powerful opportunity. That's where the power lies, in that ability to release.
Okay.
And to have awareness. And I think patriarchy has taken that ability for us to be in our awareness. I think that's a huge, like, be in the stillness, be in the quiet, be in the stopping. That's been sort of taken away. That's part of the feminine, and we've sort of rejected that too. As women, we've taught to reject it. We've taught to just keep going.
Keep going. And that's what I meant by that kind of progress, like just we're orientated towards progress. So, you know, even when we have, I mean, everyone knows this, when we've got our periods, we just keep soldiering on, we go to work. So there's our culture doesn't allow us to kind of live in this nature. So I did want to touch on that a bit later on, but I just want to keep on this cycle. So if we're bleeding and it's the letting go, like, how do we know what we need to let go of in this time?
Yeah, that's challenging, because if you don't have awareness of yourself or of your patterns or how you operate, then it will just take a bit longer to bring awareness to that. The way you can start bringing awareness is journaling. You just, every time something comes up, like, oh, so-and-so did this, it's like you can gossip with yourself and no one else sees it. You just start to write about what's happening, what's coming up, and what you're noticing. And that starts to bring you to awareness, and you can start journaling about, this period I have this pain, I've got breast pain. And then you can start to, like, inquire about, this is how I approach things. This is quite alternative. So this might not, for people who are quite practical and logical, this will be a stretch, but this is how I've managed to heal my things. So when I was going through perimenopause, I had a lot of breast pain during my menstruation. A lot of people say that's like estrogen buildup. But I went, okay, so what are my breasts? What do they do? They were nurturing for my babies, and I was nurtured by them from my mother when I was a baby. So this is how I do it. Where am I not nurturing myself? Where am I not looking after myself? And as soon as I did that, I went, I need to start eating this. So it's not so much the food that changed it. It was my belief system had to change. So once I started bone brothing, like, every single day for over winter, the whole winter month, it just went away. It's literally the next cycle I had, it wasn't there anymore.
That's amazing.
So that it's not like Jane Hubbard Collins from School of Shamanic Womancraft says, awareness is curative. So it's the awareness, the key piece to the whole standing and being with your menstrual cycle and being with all the parts of yourself.
So what that might look like for someone who is practical like me, I'm just so practical sometimes. It took me a while to build that awareness. So if, for example, our pain is in our neck or our shoulders, if we're coming into our bleed phase and we've got this niggling pain in our shoulders, we could start to think, okay, what does shoulders represent? It perhaps represents what am I carrying?
Yeah, what are you carrying? Yeah.
Because, we can all relate to that, the shoulders are carrying so much. So when we get into bleed phase, we could journal, or we could just even literally just bring awareness to, what can I release? Like, what can I not carry? So it's kind of like when we're coming into this bleed phase, thinking about what's not working within our physical body and bringing some just awareness or intuition to what that could represent, and then just letting that go in that phase.
Yeah. So when you're bleeding, you can say it out loud to yourself, or you can write it down. You can write a list of things you want to release. Like Jane says, I just quote Jane all the time because she's incredible. But she said it's not a shopping list, but it's just, you just do what's happening now. Not a big list.
So not kind of like, in 20 years' time, I want to do this. It's more about in this cycle.
Yeah. It's just over a month. We're just doing what we can handle and what's really just there at the moment. And, shoulders, definitely, what are you carrying? And then you can go back a little bit deeper, like, where was I carrying? Where do I carry? When I was a kid, maybe where did I carry? Because healing the menstrual cycle is about from the ages of 0 to 25. So if you're in your 40s, you might be looking back and going what was happening at that time and what symptoms are come about
Yeah.
during that cycle, and how can I gently and tenderly navigate and have questions around, be curious around what could possibly be there.
What could be there? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's coming into the bleed phase. That's kind of trying to bring awareness of what we need to let go. And then we go into spring. So what does that look like? What should we be doing in spring? What do we need to be thinking about?
So after the cycle, so after you've bled in that spring energy, you start to generally you'll start to feel a little bit more ready to be out in the world. So it's about starting something new.
Okay.
So start your projects, start your plans, start doing things.
I like the idea of when you let go of something in the bleed cycle, that's how you create space for something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're after the bleed, there is usually we connect the bleed to the dark moon and the new moon. So you let go of what you need to, and then in the new moon you set new intentions. So you plant the seed, and then in spring you start to see the little seedling come up.
So let's see if we can follow this maybe shoulder analogy through the whole cycle. Obviously I've got shoulder. So if I'm releasing whatever I'm carrying, for me it could be just the sheer volume. I'm doing too much. I've got 4 kids and trying to work and all that sort of stuff. So I'm letting go of just carrying everyone. And then if I move into the spring cycle, I might be planting a seed for more self-care. So tending to that seed would be literally things like creating space for me to make sure I go for a walk or meditate. So that's kind of, as you can see, I'm super practical. So I like to translate everything into how I do this in my life. Enlighten me. How do I change my life? So is that what you mean by tending to the seedling? You're actually putting in place things.
New conditions. Yeah. So you can go to I want to be taking more time or walking or doing those things. But if you go a little bit deeper to where am I not having, creating the right conditions for me to thrive? Where am I carrying too much, and where do I need to change that? What things do I need to put in place? What do I need to change in the way I behave as well? In the way that I sacrifice myself, take things on that are actually a no when I'm saying yes, it's fine. Because you might have said that at ovulation. Everything, because the estrogen is very accommodating. It's the accommodating hormone, so it makes you want to do everything. But then when you no longer have that peak in estrogen, you start to be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any of that. Your personality changes on purpose. It's part of the process. People always have things to say about women around that time, but it's part of who we are. We no longer put up with things that we used to after the ovulation happens. And being in service is really important. And we need people who are in service. But there's a certain part of the cycle that it's not what we're about anymore.
Okay, let's get to that. So we're still in spring.
I'm jumping ahead.
We're still in spring. So we've planted the seed after we've let go. We're tending to that seedling, setting new intentions. Maybe doing new habits, new conditions, all of that. So that's that week. Anything else you wanted to say about that phase?
If you think about spring, I mean, it's the light returns.
So more clarity.
It's the light returns. You can begin again. You start to feel like the more energy, the energy is sort of building. So it's about starting something new, just beginning something fresh. And
I love that. Okay, so then we get into summer, get into our ovulation period. So for me, I've let go. Now creating more space for me to not carry so much of everyone. What am I doing in summer? What am I doing when I'm ovulating? Or what in general? And then we can go specific back to the shoulder example.
So I mean, it's where you have peak energy. It's your peak amount of energy, like I said before. You're most beautiful, you're the most accommodating, and you're also the most seductive and have the ability to convince people of things, because people just see you as this shining character no matter what. So you can use this energy, do the peak thing that you want to do. Like if you do weights at the gym, do your hardest session around this time, unless you're trying to conceive. But go hard from after you've finished your cycle all the way up to ovulation, just past it, until you start to feel the drop in energy, and then go half on your gym before the bleed. Anyway, we're rushing ahead. But like you can go peak fitness and peak exercise and peak everything,
peak workload, peak.
This is if you're healthy too. But some women might find at ovulation you're just as tired as you were at your bleed. which is another thing to like go into. But you can feel just as tired there, which is another kind of indication of something going on there. I can't be specific because it'd be different for everyone. I think that's the key piece, is it's individual for each woman. I could give you a sort of an idea, but then you've got to put your own map on top of that.
And I think the key thing is actually, when we live so much in our heads, which I've done for so long, it's actually really tuning in with what is going on in my body. And this is why I love this information, because like once we can start to understand what's happening, like when we can start to feel what's going in our body, then we can start to overlay it with, well, how does it relate to my cycle? Where am I at? And what do I need to be letting go of? What do I need to be planning? So it's really about like your own awareness, isn't it? So that's why it is so individual.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I have let go in the bleed. I am creating more space for myself in my ovulation phase. I've got my space. I've got my energy. I'm doing as much work as I can. So that's kind of like I'm just executing on my intention, really, that I've set. And life's great. And then we tip back into summer, autumn.
Yeah.
And you're saying there's a hormone change then?
Yes. So the estrogen wanes and progesterone wanes as well. Okay. So there's a hormonal shift, and there's this energy shift as well. You start to, because estrogen is so accommodating, it's the accommodating hormone. It's where it starts to be like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to clean. I don't want to cook for people.
So is this what we know as PMT? So this is what the culture has overlaid on it?
That's the pathology. Yeah, so what's PMT?
Which is premenstrual tension.
Yeah.
Premenstrual tension. So basically it's not premenstrual tension. No. It's literally just our hormones are changing, and we as women don't want to accommodate everyone else's, and we're just now coming back into actually what do I need to now know within myself that I need to let go of in the next cycle.
Yes, it's dropping you back into that.
So it's actually more of more awareness of more boundary setting, more. So for me, back to my shoulder thing, this one where I could be like, actually, that's not enough time for me. I need more than 10 minutes a day meditating. I need to create more space. So it just could be like almost a reflection of what worked and what didn't work in the whole cycle. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So the first 2 weeks of the cycle, we're sort of geared in this patriarchal culture to be that all the time. We're expected to be just up. After the bleed, we're expected to just be up all the time. Okay. As soon as we hit, I don't want to be in service anymore, we become a disruption. Become dangerous. Yeah. And that's where you're heading as a perimenopausal woman into menopause. You're heading to that place where the veil's lifted. There's not as much estrogen. You're you've got no shits to give. You don't care what anyone thinks as much anymore. Oh, there's a whole other side of me that is like strong and fierce
and knows my boundaries.
Intuitive, has boundaries, says no. And you're like, that's actually part of me. And that's an opportunity to. And look, there's a dysfunction in that too, because we've been taught unconsciously. Mums didn't do it on purpose. They didn't really realise they were doing it.
It was that culture, right?
Yeah, they've just been taught as well from their mothers and their mothers and mothers. So we're taught to reject the feminine. We're supposed to be accommodating it in service.
Or reject half of the feminine.
Well, the other side's the masculine. So the first 2 weeks are the masculine. So that's the doing and the getting a seed and making it happen. The feminine is about the ideas and the intuition and the brewing the idea. You put the seed in there and you brew it and you look at it and you analyze it and you nurture it.
So it's like that womb space.
Correct. It's where the baby's being gestated in that feminine.
Okay. Place. Yeah, that's fascinating. So if we take the cycle that we've just spoken about, the menstrual cycle, if we zoom that out a little bit, what I hear you saying is that kind of monthly cycle mirrors the whole cycle of womanhood. So kind of that, I had never even heard of, this is so embarrassing, I'd never heard of the word menarche up until I met Astrid. That's how disconnected I was from my cycle. I had no idea about it. So kind of that menarche and menstruating period, so when we're teenagers to kind of up until we are now mid-40s when we're going through perimenopause, is those two phases, like the first 2 weeks kind of when we're birthing and we're out in the world and then I'm just kind of making some assumptions here, so jump in and correct me anytime.
Oh.
And then kind of perimenopause and menopause is when we're coming into that second phase, that more feminine phase. Is that sort of roughly?
Yep. So that first week of the cycle where you're bleeding, that's known as the maiden energy. And then that's like spring, that first part, like it's coming out of winter into spring. That's the maiden energy. Then you have the second week is mother energy. So that's that first 2 weeks is, that's 0 to 25-year-old. And then the next phase is mother, which is 25 to almost 50 now. They've kind of shifted a little bit. So that's that phase of life. And then on the other side, the next 2 weeks of the cycle are the 50 to 70, which is crone, which is Marga, and then crone is 70 to 100. So that's the menopausal, perimenopausal is on the other side. Okay. So autumn, winter.
So those phases of womanhood, do they mirror the same qualities as the phases of the cycle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So the phase that you or I are in now, which is perimenopause, which is, we're pushing on 50's door. What can we expect in this phase? So this is when we're coming into setting more boundaries, more kind of bringing in more awareness.
So we're still mothering as well. So we're in the autumn of our summer. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're in the part where we're shedding and we're letting go of some of the mothering stuff to move into menopause, to move towards menopause.
Yeah.
Where we won't be mothering as much. Yeah. More guiding, I guess. Yeah, because we're not breastfeeding and that sort of thing. But just some women are having their babies at 45, so it's a whole different story, different map for them.
Yeah.
But still stays with the phases. So I mean, it's challenging. Jane talks about this a lot in her work at the moment, just about being a perimenopausal woman with kids and how to manage all the symptoms whilst still being a parent.
Yeah,
it's challenging. And I watched a seminar from the Red School, which is a menstruation and menopause business. And they're incredible. And they had a seminar on where a woman, I can't remember who it was at the time, was talking about holding the tension like a rubber band between caring for your kids and looking after your kids and going through all these perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms that are like making you want to go in the other direction. Like, it's an extraordinary, it's another level of awareness, like a navigation into presence, not rushing and being with what they need whilst tending to your own needs. Yeah. Having boundaries and saying no, and this isn't going to work for me. And I mean, my kids know that I don't have sleepovers, I don't go anywhere, I don't do anything if I've got my menstrual cycle. Yeah. Unless I'm in my pumped phase where I'm hyped.
I mean, that's amazing to raise two boys with that awareness.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. It is, absolutely. Well, let's actually talk about that then. So how can living with awareness of these cycles within us, I wanted to start with, how can that change or shift our life? If we can start with an individual and then we can go family and then we could even go out to the world, like what changes firstly can we start to see as an individual if we start to honor this cycle within ourselves?
Joy Regardless is out now. It's my raw, honest memoir about rediscovering the wholeness that's been hidden in our hearts all along, described as a must-read for any soul searcher. It's available on Amazon and in selected bookstores, and the link is in the show notes.
So, starting at the individual, and depending on how long it takes to sort of come into awareness throughout the cycle, it will depend on what shifts. And so you might find that symptoms start to change, so symptoms start to shift.
We don't have as much pain.
I mean, I've worked with them before over just one session, bringing awareness to what they're going through, and they call me up next month and they've said, I don't have any pain. So I know how quickly things can shift with awareness. Just each individual is different. It might be that symptoms shift. You might find bleeding changes, you might have less blood or something shifts in that area. I can't say exactly. But I guess the awareness brings a level of tenderness to yourself, but that also depends on how hard you've been on yourself your whole life. Again, so that's why I keep saying, it takes time to start to be kind to yourself and love yourself, because we're honestly not taught. We're not taught how to care for ourselves. I'm only just realizing now in perimenopause that I have to look after myself. Like it's not, that's, with the bone brothing over winter and that has just brought me back home. And it's not the bone broth itself, it's just the act you're going to into yourself.
The act of it.
It's quite an exceptional experience going through perimenopause. That's a whole other podcast, I think.
Yeah. We can do that.
So that's the individual, like the way you relate to people could change, the way you behave out in the world could change, the way you treat yourself, the way you mother or parent start to shift.
So, I mean, I can give a very practical example in my own life because, and there's a scene of this in my book because for me, love you, Phil, my period for 20 years has been met with, that time of the month again, is it? Kind of, that meant that kind of banter, that cultural kind of, overlay.
Yeah.
And then I started to have more understanding of my cycle. And so I would just simply own with the kids and with Phil, I'm bleeding right now. I need more rest. You guys go do washing. So just kind of owning where I'm at.
Yeah.
And now, instead of, must be that time of the month again, I actually get Phil saying to me, when I say I'm bleeding, he's like, okay, you go rest. I'll drive the kids to school today. So that's the shift I began to see in my own home when I started to own the cycle and own what I'm supposed to be doing in that cycle.
Yeah.
And again, with those boundaries, communicating that quite, clearly and lovingly still, I did begin to see shifts within. It felt like a power. It felt really empowering, not just for me, but also for my husband and our daughters and our sons, that this is what I need at this phase. Yeah. So it's a softening and it's more compassion, but it's also, it feels powerful as well.
It's a respect for yourself. I think it's kind of the way that other people treat you in regard to the cycle is really a reflection of how you've been taught to treat yourself. It's like, just your period, just get on with it.
Well, that's what we're ever told to do.
Yeah, I know, just get on with it.
Totally. So, no blame to the blokes for saying that because our whole culture is orientated towards, there's no honouring of the cycle. There's no awareness of the cycle. How can we honour something we don't even know about?
Yeah, exactly. We're missing the 2 weeks of it that we're supposed to be taught.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we also have let it happen too in a lot of ways. Like, that's not to criticise ourselves, but we've allowed it because that's who we've been taught that we are.
Yeah.
We're accommodating, we allow things, people say things like, women do more nurturing jobs. Well, we've been forced to.
Yeah.
Because no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like men don't want to take up those roles because they are scared of that aspect of themselves.
Yeah, because they've been conditioned out of it too.
Seen as gay, or they're seen as
if they're soft, or if they're it is kind of this disconnection from this secular way of living, this masculine feminine that we're supposed to live by.
Yeah.
That negatively impacts all of us, not just women.
Yes.
And that is absolutely a whole nother podcast I'm keen to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So
family, you sort of went into family.
Family, yeah.
Express that.
But how has it impacted your sons? You've got 2 teenage sons.
Yeah. Well, since I started when they were born and, when they were little babies, they used to come in and and they, what's that on your pad? Bleeding. So I used to openly.
Not totally normalised it.
Totally normalised it, talked about it all the time. Never shamed myself around it. It's because I learnt from my upbringing, to really honour my body and never say anything crap about my body to my kids. I've never done that.
Yeah.
So it's really there. I think this got like an aspect of menstruation education needs to include teaching them about ovulations so that they don't have sex around that time. So they're less likely to have babies. I hope that's getting taught at schools.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep they're going.
It certainly wasn't taught when we were at school.
No.
Yeah. Good old 90s.
But so I mean, those are sort of things, how it can affect the family by being honest about it and being open. But I mean, that takes time.
But I love to think about like your sons then going out into the world and how there's just more respect for their future relationships. They're still young, but their future relationships. Yeah. They're just bringing that level of respect to future partners.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's huge. I think that's huge. Rather than us having to do all the educating, they're coming to it. That is a shift in the world. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you think you're not doing something to help things that are happening out in the world, inside the home, with that stuff with boys, if you, introducing into that. And I think it's about mutual respect too. Like, I sort of parent in a way I allow them to have a voice. It makes me a bit emotional talking about it. I allow them to have a voice and to be, sentient beings that I said, okay, now, so you understand the consequences of your actions. If you go too far sometimes, and he goes, oh, and his brain was done because I didn't punish him. I just got him to self-reflect. And I think that all this is helping the world out there. So
absolutely
self-reflect.
Absolutely. So by bringing more compassion to ourselves, naturally we start to bring more compassion to others. But it's start here first.
It does. That awareness. Yeah.
So let's talk about the world then. So if we started living in this cyclical way more, and then if we bring that into our families and they have more awareness of what's happening within us, what's happening within them, how do you see that ripple affecting how we might govern policy? What changes do you think could happen if we start to really adopt not just this crazy way of being, it's how we're designed to live.
Yeah, exactly.
We all know there's 4 seasons of the in the earth, and there's seasons within us too.
Yeah.
So if we actually just started living how we're designed, what could we expect would shift?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I love to have this sort of vision in my head of what if I could dream the biggest dream that I could have about this. I mean, look, my dream is that patriarchy crumbles, and I think it is starting to happen because women are pulling away from the old ways of sacrificing and self-sacrificing and of being so accommodating to men and their needs, even though it's the way that they've been modeled is based on the construct of patriarchy, which teaches them not to be themselves. So it's like women are pulling away from that, making choices for themselves. And I think in terms of, ideally, we would construct society and culture around women and children. That would be the dream.
Yeah.
So that every single thing is based around how it accommodates the cyclic nature. Yeah. And then that's how we clearly treat the earth. I mean, that's what indigenous cultures are all about. We're not separate from nature, which means we're not separate from the seasonal qualities of ourselves or the moons and the menstrual cycle. We're not separate from it. Yeah. And I think then men would really embody their masculinity in a way that was very authentic. They would embrace all the parts of themselves because there would be no other option. They would either have to go and live all together somewhere else because I don't know what would happen, but they would have to accommodate. They wouldn't be able to help it. Yeah. Because it would be so incredibly rich and calm. Yeah. I just don't think there would be as many wars. I don't think there would be as many. I think men would stop killing women. I think there'd just be so much change. So it's just we can think, it's just our periods. Like, why is Lara getting so deep? But it's actually so much more than that. It's just an orientation of how our whole society is structured. And we're totally not in alignment with how we're designed to be. No. And what I hear you saying there is if we bring some of that alignment back into honouring the cycles of within ourselves and with the season and honouring both the masculine and the feminine in all of us, then that brings softness, it brings compassion, it brings empowerment, it brings boundaries, and it reconnects us back to ourselves, to each other, to the earth. So it's so much more than just our period. It's actually just how we live our life. Yeah. And how that ripples out into the world. It's a blueprint. Yeah. Really. I mean, men aren't cyclic. They're based on a kind of a 24-hour clock kind of style thing. So they don't have an embodied understanding of it. But I think once I've seen a lot of men talk on Instagram about how when they're in tune with their women's cycle, there's a different flow to how things are done. Yeah. Because you can still create things in your autumn and winter part of your cycle. It's just a different way of creating. Yeah. It's generally more intuitive. It flows more. There's not like this pressure or there's not a when things are born, there's a pressure. When a baby comes out of a vagina, there's a force. There's a downward energy that needs to get something into life. So it's not to say that there isn't pressure in the masculine, but there's a different way to do things that is quite intuitive, listening to your dreams, paying attention to the liminal space, just stopping. Yeah. You need to stop. Yeah, there's power in that. So anyone who's listening and is resonating with this, but honestly, if you where I was at, not only very recently, and you just have no awareness of your cycle, but no awareness of this secular way of living, which is exactly where I was at.
what are some of the things people could start to do? We spoke about journaling. What are some tools that people could start to do just to really start to kind of slowly but surely just adopt this different way of being?
I think just paying attention to your cycle, like writing down what's happening at each day of your cycle. Start focusing on that. If you haven't done it before, start to track your cycle. Not with the app, do it in a piece of paper and pen so you've got something tactile in your hands to work with, you know. Start to write down each day how you were feeling, what was happening, what events were happening, you know, what was going on. And then you can go, like, if you keep doing that over like a 6-month period, you can go back to certain parts and go, oh, that's where that links up with that. You can start to become a bit of a sleuth and figure out, oh, how all the sort of patterns come together, and you go, oh, that's why that was happening. That was, you know, because you'll notice, you'll start, as you keep jotting it down, you'll start to understand, the patterns that are showing up.
Okay.
Which leads to more awareness of what you keep doing, or what you're noticing is happening over and over again.
And what you need to let go of.
Yeah, what you need to let go of.
Yeah. Okay.
You need to call in.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then, just having a play with when you're bleeding, doing something differently. You know, like maybe not going anywhere for that first couple of days, or wearing a cup, or wearing period undies, like doing the opposite of what you usually do usually creates change.
So actually, when you are bleeding, forcing yourself to rest.
Yeah. And then seeing all the demons come up, like, oh, I should be doing something. I should be doing this. I should be making dinner. I should be doing that. Start lovingly and tenderly forcing yourself. Let's not use force. Let's use just shifting. Yeah,
but changing. It does need a little bit of, like, it's probably not the right word, but it needs, it's almost like we're faking it till we make it. Like it needs some, okay, I'm supposed to be resting. I should be resting. What do I do now? I didn't know how to rest. I'm still working out how to rest. There's still this lingering guilt every time. And that's what you're saying. Like, we've been taught to embrace one half of our cycle, which is about we're out and we're giving and we're nurturing. But the part that needs to turn inwards and rest and honor our own boundaries, that's the part the world doesn't like so much. So we have this guilt around rest. I like what you said, just doing something different. So when we're up, that's a really simple thing to start with. When we're bleeding, say to your family, hey, I'm bleeding right now. You guys hang out the washing. You guys do the food shop. I just need to just lay down for an hour. I mean, I don't do that every cycle. And after this conversation, I am going to try and honor that more. But I know when I have done it, you know, there is a softness. It's almost like my family are more empowered. They actually really like nurturing me. You're kind of giving them permission to adopt that feminine side of them. If I'm taking it on all the time, the world tells us we'll be the martyr and keep going. You're not even giving your family the opportunities to embrace that softness and to embrace it.
Mic drop.
There you go. As Oprah says, that was an aha. That was an aha.
It was.
I didn't actually think of it until then. So actually, by honoring ourselves, we're also creating the opportunities for our families and our partners to honor their fullness of their selves.
And to grow their skills of nurturing, as you know, because you've got a son too.
Two sons.
4 kids.
Yes, two of each.
I haven't met the other one, that's why. Yes, I have. The little redhead.
Really?
Oh my God, he's so gorgeous. Oh my God. How could I have?
So we're soccer mum friends.
Soccer mum friends.
Yeah. And then we kind of were on the soccer sidelines and started talking about menstruation.
That's right.
We're going to be friends.
You know, when you start talking about that stuff, that you're okay. It's not going to be small talk.
So I think that's a beautiful thing when we start to honor ourselves. It does ripple outwards for sure. Yeah. So that's 2 really good tips. Literally force yourself to try something new. Resting when you need to, planting seeds when you need to, letting go when you need to, being out in the world when you need to, setting boundaries when you need to. Just start to honor that within your own cycle and just wait and watch and see how that ripples outwards. Before we go, I really wanted to touch on, so as I mentioned in the intro, Astrid's a menstrual educator who runs workshops and other things, but she's also a singer-songwriter, an actress, a highly creative being, and she's been given a grant to create a musical. And so Astrid is bringing all her vast, amazing knowledge about the cycle into a musical called Simply Blood, the musical, which I just love. And I wanted to ask you 2 questions on this because she's in the very early stages of it. So it's a while away from being on stage. But what you said to me is when you got the grant that it's about portraying the heroine or the woman's journey towards their own unique self-expression. So how does adopting or embracing our menstrual cycle, how does that help us become our true selves?
That's a big one.
Yeah, I know, it's deeper threads. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I had this idea for this musical probably in 2017 when I did the School of Shamanic Womancraft course, the 4 Seasons Journey. And that sort of started, forming in my mind. It's been almost 10 years since then. I feel now that it's interesting because when I first came up with the idea, I thought it was just going to be about menstruation. But now that I'm perimenopausal, it's about reckoning with all the parts of myself, or the character anyway, based loosely on my experience, reckoning with all the parts of myself so that I can come into my full expression. How to do that through the menstrual cycle is reckoning with the maiden, which is, I mean, that's what the journey of perimenopause is reckoning with the maiden part of yourself. So from 0 to 25, all the things that happened in that time, I need to heal those in order to come to my wise woman self as I move forward, so that I can be in that grounded energy of, I know who I am, I know what I want, and into leadership, because that's where menopause is taking you, into leadership. And that's really where our power is. So the menstrual cycle, that again, it comes back to awareness and embracing all the parts of yourself. And I often say to myself, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, sometimes you look like a witch. Like sometimes you look really crotchety, and sometimes I look like a troll under the bridge, and other times I look really beautiful, and sometimes I look, just very natural or whatever. And I've really had to embrace all those parts of myself. And I feel like that's part of the menstrual cycle too, in that it's rejecting what we've been taught. And we're being taught about ourselves, like who we're allowed to be. Because for a long time, I think I was basing my worth on what men thought of me, on whether I was beautiful enough for men, or whether how men received me. So I've really had to discard that. Yeah. I'm still working on discarding that.
So that's what you're saying, like healing the maiden. Those beliefs were formed in those first 25 years.
Yes.
And now you're in the different phase, not just of your cycle, of your life. And you're reckoning with that belief that was instilled.
All those beliefs. Yeah. And all the experiences that I've had as in my menstruation career has taught me something about how I felt about myself. So I remember specifically one time when I had my period and I was changing my pad like every 20 minutes. I don't even know how I had that many pads. Every time I saw blood, I'd just be freaking out.
Right.
So I've just forgotten about that. And I just remember that now. So there's healing that. Like, what was it about the blood? What is it about the blood that is so terrifying or so gross? It's leaning into the fears, leaning into, and I know like maybe this is something you do alongside a therapist in some parts, depending on what's happened in those 25 years, because, you might need someone to support you going into these things, because oftentimes they're too painful. You don't want to go into that again. And your sexual experiences too have an impact on how you feel about yourself and what you've given away, or what boundaries you didn't have, or things that happened. Those things will come up again in perimenopause. This is all Jane's work. This is I'm just flavoring it in my own. This all comes from what I learned at the School of Shamanic Womancraft. So it's reconnecting with that raw, wild self as well. It's that those 2 weeks of the cycle after you're ovulating is really that place of disgust. It's decay. Make friends with the parts of yourself that you hate. Friends with all the parts of yourself that you don't like about yourself. Get friendly and figure out why that happened, and start to form a friendship with all those parts, and start to change it into something else. It's like parts work. It's another therapeutic thing that I love.
think there's such power in what you're saying. Like, if we just even ask that question, like, why have I always found my blood so disgusting? Even just simply asking, it just opens up the portal to such awareness of what's happened in the world to get us to that point, what's happened within ourselves to get us that point. And just that questioning is really the first point of opening, isn't it?
Yeah. Questions.
Yeah.
Like questions to yourself. It's the way, it's that curiosity about yourself.
So I really, really love that, that this phase that we're in, which mirrors that autumn phase, which we're kind of on that cusp, summer, autumn, but we're starting to kind of set those boundaries and question and bring curiosity to all the parts of ourselves. That mirrors exactly what's happening in a lot of women's lives in this age, where we start to kind of question, why do I think that's icky, or why do I never rest, or why do I carry the whole family? That is such, it's a shedding of everything we've ever known, and then we're coming back into the shedding. So it's just so fascinating when we just start to look at where we're at and look at what's happening within our own body and what's happening in the whole world. And people say, oh, we're a part of nature, we're connected. This is when you actually start to see, yes, we really are, because we are mirroring exactly what's happening in the earth, exactly what's happening energetically, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It's all the same cycle. It's quite fascinating. This is why I love conversations like this, because they are kind of mic drops. Like, oh my God, I am questioning. I am in that phase. And then I think of, writing it down, like you're saying, and trying things differently, that just gives power to that cycle and helps us really adapt a different way of being.
Yeah.
So are you hoping with theatre that you will kind of help to break some of the silence and stigma around the menstrual cycle? Is that ultimately what you're hoping to do?
Yeah, it's a traditional theatre piece, but it'll be a bit abstract in the way I do it. It'll be my way of doing it, but it will be educational as well. There will be, probably a giant vulva.
Love it.
There's different characters that teach her about something along the way, and she really reckons with all the parts of herself and about her disgust about blood, and I'm basing it all on women's stories. So I've got a survey in my link tree in my Instagram where women can fill out a survey to help me to be inspired by all the stories, and I've collected them all in an A4 document, and I'm pulling lines out and pieces out where women have said a certain thing about their menstrual cycle, and I'm turning it into a song.
And are women saying things to you like we've discussed, how they've always thought it was gross?
All the things. It's very universal what women say. Like, it's usually about 20% of women saying, I really honor my cycle, and then the 80% is
see, that's fascinating.
Financially I didn't have enough money for pads. Some people said that. My mum told me to keep it a secret from my dad. Blood all over my white skirt at school, had to wear a jumper around my waist. I leaked in, I was a swimming pool, like it's
all of that,
all of the things that we've all experienced in some way.
And that's shame.
There's
shame that we carry because of that. So when you're saying like the musical is sort of honoring this women's rites of passage to reclaim the fullness of themselves, we're actually bringing awareness to that shame and healing it in a way through simply just knowing that it's not our fault we felt this shame. This is where it's came from. I haven't been taught to honor my cycles. So it's that's what we said before. It's the softening and the empowerment. They go hand in hand.
The masculine and the feminine holding hands together.
Beautiful.
That's it. It's both things, being vulnerable and being strong. Those two things. That's what makes us. I mean, people have said this before, but vulnerability is what makes us strong. It's
shout out to you, Brene Brown. If you can just share this, that would be amazing.
Tag her in. That's the key piece. I think people respect you when you're vulnerable. You have the capacity to be honest about something and vulnerable and being accountable. I think there's a lot of strength in that. There's a lot of power in that. But the musical, like through music and song, art is revolutionary.
And joy.
It's sort of
it's very funny. It's going to be a funny musical.
Well, there's comedy in it, and then it will dip you back into the depth of it, and then bring you back out to really get you to, I'm laughing about that, but it's actually not funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. So, that's kind of how I roll. But I'm hoping that
amazing
women from the age of, 10 to young women up to whoever old can come and watch this show.
Brilliant. Women
might swear.
And men.
And men, yes. So men. I definitely want men.
So important for men to know this. Yeah. Absolutely.
Dads and daughters.
Yeah. So how can people find you if they want to know about when the musical's coming up, or any menstrual workshops or women's circles, anything that you've got going on? What's the best way for people to follow you?
If you follow me on Instagram at astrid.serpentine.
Cool. I'll put a link to the show.
Link. But I've got some free workshops at the moment. So menstruation for workshops coming up there. So they're in my
great.
So,
amazing.
Go on the Central Coast. I might do an online one too.
Okay. Perfect. We're on Darkington Country, Central Coast. That's where Astrid runs her workshops, but hopefully there'll be some online too. So my final question to you is, as the podcast is called Deeper Threads, and we may have already touched on this, but I like to ask everyone, is there a deeper thread to life? So a truth that you have come to realize within yourself that you know to be true, a thread that might run through all the elements of your life, and by bringing that to the light or by sharing that, it might bring some clarity. some insight to the listener.
You need to stop in order to know who you are. You can't know who you are if you haven't stopped to reflect on it. And that's what I've learned. I'm not stopping, like really stopping still, like letting go of everything. Like I let go of being a yoga teacher. I let go of all my business, everything. And I was like, okay, shit. Who am I?
So that when we stop, that brings us to our knees in a way and gets us to ask, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I without the things I thought I needed to do in the world?
Yes, the rock bottom needs to happen at least once in your life.
So the stopping could really, I mean, if you're not at that point, that could just simply start with stopping when you're bleeding.
Bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really stopping. Like just, don't go to work. I mean, that's what Jane Harvey Collins has tried to bring in to the corporate world, a menstruation policy. Like that's actually been instated. Like there's some things that have changed with that. That's why women get a day off a month, in some places during the menstrual cycle.
It's actually all part of the same problem, is that we're just conditioned out of half of ourselves, and the feminine, and within all of us, men and women, it's not embraced.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't know about our cycles, and that's why we live in this progress orientated culture. That is the root, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. But that is the deeper thread, isn't it?
That's the deeper thread. What a good way to end on. Perfect. Thank you so much. That was so insightful.
And it was great.
I mean, I just know in my own life, you've just opened me up to a whole new world, of a whole new way of being. And I hope that's done that for you as well. So thank you for being here, and thank you, Astrid, for joining.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Before I let you go, I wanted to share something personal. After this conversation, I did something I had never done in my 30-odd years of having a period. I actually stopped. I sat with my body. I listened. I've had tight shoulders for as long as I can remember. I've stretched them, massaged them, complained about them, but I've never once asked them what they were trying to tell me. So in a recent cycle, I did. I sat with them, I asked, and what came up kind of stopped me in my tracks. This cycle revealed how the weight in my shoulders isn't mine. It's the weight of other people's doubt, people who don't believe in me or my work. And somewhere along the way, quietly without even realizing it, I had picked up that doubt and made it my own. I had started to believe them, and in doing so, I had lost trust in myself and in my dream. So, after that big realization, I followed the cycle, just as Astrid taught. In the stillness of my winter bleed, I visualized releasing those projections, letting them go and returning them to whoever they belong to. In spring, I planted a seed, small but a little bit radical, to believe in my own dream again. Through the energy of summer, I took action, which was one small step in the direction of that dream. And in the harvest of autumn, I'm beginning to see what that planted seed is becoming. On the outside, nobody would know anything different, but inside I feel more empowered than ever. And I think that is exactly what living in rhythm with our cycle cultivates. Power. It's like this quiet, unshakable kind of power. Because really nature is the ultimate power, and we are not separate from it. We never were. So thank you, Astrid, truly, for cracking this open for me. And for the people listening, I hope for you too. I, for one, cannot wait to see Blood the Musical on stage. I have a feeling it's going to be the kind of art that changes people. As for my art, this deeper thread space, as I mentioned in my last blog, I need a bit of a rest. We've had a massive year moving our family back to New Zealand, and it's time for me to take a pause. So for the next few months, I'll be running some of the best of episodes while I take a little winter pause of my own. Because rest, as Astrid reminded us, is not the opposite of progress. It's part of it. So I'll be back on the other side of winter with some really incredible conversations, and much love until then. Thanks for listening. If this episode resonated, subscribe over at laracharles.substack.com to ask any questions. The link is in the show notes. My Substack newsletter and this podcast are free because I believe these conversations and reflections should be available to everyone. But I am a one-woman show, and any support would be so appreciated. If you are in a position to support my work financially, you can become a paid subscriber over at Substack for just the price of a cup of coffee a month, and you get the audiobook version of my memoir for free as a thank you gift. I'm so grateful to everyone who has already become a paid subscriber. You help me keep this project going. This podcast is also available on Apple or Spotify, and you can follow by clicking the plus or follow button. Deeper Threads is here to help us remember who we are beneath the surface. It's a show for anyone yearning for more meaning. So please share the podcast with your loved ones, because we get to more depth, kindness, and justice, all the good stuff, when we are all willing to dig a little deeper. Thanks so much to you for being here.